part of the eco-engineering set of lectures, and we're going to look at how a company can calculate its carbon footprint. And so first thing, as we've done with all of these, is to put a little bit of a disclaimer out there that this is November 2023, and a lot of information changes through time, and that this is true with eco-engineering and sustainability and stuff. So take what we say in this presentation as an interesting starter, but please do your own research, as things that we say today might be out of date when you come to listen to this. Also, I'm going to try very hard not to come across as quite preachy, which is quite hard within these sorts of topic areas, but hopefully we'll do a good job. Okay, so today we're going to explore the impact of measuring and understanding the environmental impacts of companies. We'll discuss the concept of carbon footprint and guide you through the process of calculating it. So there's quite a lot of information and things that come about when the business activities looks at the financial performances and stuff, and how the carbon footprint can impact that. So let's have a quick thing looking back several years ago, which companies were emitting the most CO2. So according to the Carbon Disclosure Project, between 1988 and 2015, 100 companies responsible for 71% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and of them was things like China Coal, different companies within like coal industry, fossil fuels are clearly a big thing. So understand where where we can hit and make a difference is important. So causes for rising emissions is the burning coal, oil and gas products, which produce carbon dioxide and nitrous oxygens. Obviously things like cutting down of forest, deforestation has a big impact on carbon footprint. A lot of carbon footprint increase comes from things like livestock farming, fertilization, which contains things like nitrogen and other things like that. So understanding where the CO2 emissions and stuff comes from is important. So if we've looked at the big companies, things also like livestock is a really big important thing. So what is a carbon footprint? The carbon footprint measures the total greenhouse gas emissions caused directly and indirectly by an individual, organisation, event or product. It is expressed as a carbon dioxide environment and is significant indicator of an entity's environmental impact. So it's about everything. It's not just about what you're doing, it's where things have come from and where they're going to end up, hopefully not in a landfill. So why do companies need to measure the carbon footprint? Well, it's assesses environmental impact. The company should be interested in that. It allows them to set reduction targets. It demonstrates sustainable environment, because companies are quite aware that their customers are now looking at them and looking at their carbon footprint. So it's part of their brand as well, and it's thankfully now it's more to do with things like compliance and regulation, with legal restrictions being placed on companies on how much they can create. So components of a carbon footprint is scope 1s, 2 and 3. So scope 1 is direct emissions from sources directly owned by or controlled by the company, such as on-site combustion of fossil fuels or their own vehicles. Scope 2 is indirect emissions, so that's emissions resulting from purchased electricity, say, or heating or cooling, And then we've got scope 3, which is other indirect emissions, which relates to emissions from activities associated with a company but occur outside its direct control, including supply chain, transportation, waste disposal, and employee commuting. So there's three main scopes that we look at. So calculating a company's carbon footprint. So we're looking at collecting the data, gathering information on energy consumption within the company. Determine emission factors, so convert energy and fuel usage data into greenhouse gas emissions. We can look at calculate emissions from multiplying the energy / fuel usage by the corresponding emission factors to calculate emissions for each activity. Aggregating some emissions total, the emissions from all of the scopes, scope 1, 2 and 3, because that's what we need to look at, and that will convert to a CO2e, convert the emissions of all the greenhouse gases and stuff to a measurable amount, and that CO2 is using the global warming potentials. And report and analysis, present the results, identifying emission hotspots, evaluate potential reduction opportunities. Challenges again and considerations: data availability and quality. Gathering accurate and comprehensive data can be challenging. Scope 3 emissions, collecting data from supply chain and other indirect sources can be complex but crucial for a comprehensive footprint. And also emission factors, ensure the use of up-to-date and reliable emission factors as well. And time frames, decide whether to calculate the carbon footprint annually, quarterly, or on a project-by-project basis. Next up is analyze the results, identify emission hotspots, and prioritize how you can deal with them. Set reduction targets. You should always have a target at the beginning so you know when you get to the end if you've met those targets. Implement mitigation measures, take steps to reduce emissions such as adopting energy efficiency practices, renewable energy sources and sustainable transportation. And monitor and report progression. This is not a one-off event. This is something that you need to be doing on a regular basis. It's a never-ending process. There's quite a lot of software out there that allows you to generate carbon footprint data and stuff. So here's an example of one. Why are we doing this? Well, we know that global warming by the numbers since 1854, 12.5% of all industrial carbon pollution has been produced by just 5 companies. And this is an example of Apple's carbon footprint. So it's 25.1 million metric tons of CO2e. And you can see that it really picks up when it gets to the production, manufacturing, and where scopes 1, 2 is fine. It gets to scope 3 and it becomes a problem. Okay. Conclusion: calculating a company's carbon footprint is essentially for understanding and managing its environmental impact. By quantifying emissions and identifying reduction opportunities, companies can contribute to sustainability goals and demonstrate the commitment to the environment. So it is not easy to measure these goals. And it can seem like you're spending time on things that are not going to make a profit, but in the long run it will most definitely will. It will allow you to be able to put a quantitative amount of information to your customers that you are trying to make a difference, and that sustainability and eco-engineering is something that you're committed to as a company or as a person. And there are clearly lots of tools out there that allow you to not just measure it, but to find the hotspots and react upon it and change your production processes or change your material selection processes to help reduce your carbon footprint, or look at things like offsetting of the carbon footprint. Although there's challenges just in that. Okay, I hope that's been useful to you. Thanks a lot for listening.